Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and so heartened by all the messages from all the amazing women about the intersection of issues and the connection between all the issues. That really, really rings true to me. And I'm thrilled that you're inviting Choose Democracy on, because we know that if all issues hit working class women, and especially women of color, harder, that's going to be especially true of a coup. All of the issues that have been named tonight, from climate change to fair wages, transportation, healthcare, all of it is threatened if we have an illegal power grab. And so what happened this summer was some nonviolent trainers started thinking, like, this doesn't look good. We've never actually had a president before who is dropping hints all over the place that he might not accept the results of an election. What are we going to do about this? And so people started reading the history of nonviolent resistance to coups. And my first message is that they found something very, very encouraging, which is that around the world, we have examples of people standing up and saying no to undemocratic power grabs. And just through mass participation and nonviolent discipline, creative strategizing, people being able to win back control of their democracies in the face of people who want to grab power illegally. So in looking at those historic examples, we started pulling out some key learnings and then offering trainings, sharing those with as many people as possible. So as you mentioned, just in the last few weeks, we're actually at the end of tonight, we'll have reached 8,000 people taking the Choose Democracy training, how to avoid an election-related power grab. And we're still going to continue offering those trainings with tweaks as events unfold. But I just want to share a little bit of what you would learn in that, because I think it's really important for us to ground ourselves in what works and not just in our deepest fears. One of the things that we're seeing, and maybe all of you are feeling, is just a lot of anxiety about this election. And so when we look at successful attempts to thwart coups, we find 4 keys that run through those stories. One is mass participation. It can't just be the usual suspects who show up and protest a coup. It has to be more than the usual suspects. And that relates to the second key, which is alliance building. A lot of the stories involve people building alliances with people who they don't normally work with, and especially appealing to the center. An analogy I've been thinking about, if you play tug of war, we're used to being 2 sides and trying to see which side is stronger. For example, if Sarah's negotiating with the union, for the union with management, there's 2 sides in that. In a coup, it's more complicated. The people who are often spectators are the people who actually have a really big role in deciding which way things go. So it's like you're playing tug of war, and who's on the sidelines, what side they choose, makes a really big difference. Which relates to the third key, which is nonviolent discipline. Coup resistance that sticks to nonviolence, especially in the face of government force, is much more likely to be effective. There's a lot of debates in our activist spaces about nonviolence. We're not engaging that debate. Whatever you think about that in other times, what's shown historically to work in this situation is nonviolent resistance, because it puts into light the sharp contrast between what we're doing and the powers that be that are trying to grab power illegally. The fourth key is a willingness to resist the illegitimate authority and to say, we won't go along with that. So if president decides to refuse to leave office after losing an election, people have to say, we are not going to go along with that. And the same with, decisions that might be made on the state or local level that are illegitimate. And so part of the purpose of the trainings has been to plant this seed with people, like, yes, it could happen here. Americans are used to thinking that things can't happen here that we might encourage in other places, but a coup really could happen here. It's important that we use that language to really clarify what's going on. Voter suppression is part of what's happening, and that is a really important issue in and of itself. But we're using the coup language to really distinguish when someone has crossed certain lines in, say, saying that all the votes won't be counted. So that's one of the primary things that people are watching. Is every vote going to be counted? And that's a democratic value that we can argue for, again, across the usual bubbles. Like, there are a lot of people in the center who may not agree with me on all political issues, but they would agree that every vote should be counted. So coming out of the training, we've been encouraging people to take action. And in these weeks leading up to the election, one of those actions has been to contact your local elected officials and really encourage them to take a stand that every vote will be counted in their area. One of the advantages we have in the United States is a lot of decentralization to our government. And so whether it's on the county level or the city level or the state level, there are a lot of political players who can be pressured to play a role in making sure that things go well in their state, that every vote is counted in their state. And so by getting out ahead of this, by having tens of thousands of people sign a pledge saying that they will resist if that's not done, our hope is that that will help to thwart a coup before it ever happens. We know that in the 80s, Ronald Reagan wanted to invade Nicaragua, and many, many people signed a pledge of resistance, and then he didn't invade Nicaragua. That played a role in the climate fight against the Keystone XL pipeline as well. People pledging to do civil disobedience if our politicians don't do the right thing. So there's a number of strategies like that. In the event of an actual coup, I'm so happy to hear, the union representatives here, because that is going to be really important. Organized labor plays a crucial role in these stories. Many federations are looking at the possibility of a general strike in the event of a coup. I was thinking of Sarah saying that the planes can't take off without the flight attendants. And so if people have a general strike and refuse to go to work, that will have a major impact. Pressuring businesses is also a way of pressuring our political system, because we know how much influence money has. So two other things I'll say about how this relates to women in particular. One, reading these stories of past coups being thwarted, I noticed that a lot of the histories were written by men, and so the stories of women were not highlighted. But I also saw women very present in these stories, reading between the lines. So one of them is a coup in 1920 from Germany, where a man named Wolfgang Kopp declared himself the ruler. He was from the right-wing party, and everybody recognized that this was a problem who wasn't part of the right wing. So the centrists and the left-wing groups, which often fought with each other, very quickly came together and built an alliance. They called for a general strike, which included the government workers. And so when Wolfgang went in to write a proclamation saying that he was the new leader, he couldn't find anyone to type it for him, because being a man of that era, he didn't know how to type. So the next day he brought his daughter in to type his proclamation. But basically the coup only lasted a few days, because if the people aren't supporting you, you won't be able to get away with that kind of thing. So we have to think about how we can operate in a way that refuses to cooperate with a coup. And that's going to be different for different people in different sectors, whether you're a politician or a union leader or any variety of roles. Part of what we do in the training is help people to think about, how can I plug into this? What will be my piece? The last thing I'll say for myself personally is learning the skills of nonviolent direct action has been so empowering to me as a woman. I've been an activist for 35 years, but much of it was not doing direct action until the last 10 years in the climate movement. Realizing that I can interrupt a corporate shareholder meeting, realizing that in organizing with other people, we can really build power and challenge authority in ways that I was not taught to. I was taught to ask nicely, to write a polite letter, to make a phone call to my senator. And it took me a ridiculously long time to realize that as long as my senator is taking money from the fossil fuel industry, the polite letter is not going to get me anywhere. But once I finally got that, once I finally realized that working with other people, we could build real grassroots power, it changed my life in so many ways. I went to a women's conference once where some of the women were doing that coal walking thing where people walk on hot coals and it's supposed to be like this empowering experience. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but come do direct action. You get that same feeling of empowerment and it's free and actually makes a difference and is one of the best ways that we can use to disrupt injustice. I think it's going to be really key in this upcoming period. There's a chance that all the organizing by many groups ahead of time will make it unnecessary. And that's my greatest hope, that people will get trained and then use these skills for the other issues that have been raised tonight. But if not, it's really an important time for us to come together to use the power that we've been building to affect all of the issues that we care about that have been named tonight. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.